Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to tear down that classic image of a millionaire. Forget the supercars. Forget the Ivy League degrees. We're diving deep into the research from the Millionaire Mind to find out the surprising and honestly kind of reassuring truth about how real wealth is actually built.
So, let's kick things off with a big question. That straight-A student, the valedictorian, the one voted most likely to succeed, are they really the ones who end up winning the financial game? We're all taught that amazing grades lead to amazing success, but is that really how it works?
All right, let's dive into our first section, the millionaire myth. We're going to put the common assumption right up against the surprising reality.
So the research basically splits people into two main groups. On one hand, you've got the stars. Let's call them the Bryans. These are the brilliant kids, top of their class, but because school was just so easy for them, they never really developed that resilience, that tough armor plate you need for the real world. And then you've got the strivers, the Todds. These were your average students. They heard plenty of criticism, they struggled, and they learned how to just keep on pushing. They got conditioned to ignore the haters and just find another way to get things done. And this really gets to the heart of it all. The real world isn't a classroom. You can have the most brilliant idea, the most perfect business plan, and still get shot down by a dozen banks. The person who wins isn't always the smartest. It's the person who hears no 12 times and still has the grit to go find that 13th yes. That's why resilience, not just pure intellect, is the real currency of success.
Which leads us perfectly into Section 2, the average advantage. And you're going to see how not being the smartest person in the room can actually be your greatest secret weapon.
Okay, listen to this quote. Who do you think said that? Maybe a struggling artist? Someone who just didn't quite make it? Just keep that C+ average in your head for a second.
Surprise! The guy who said that is Warren Bielke, a self-made millionaire who helps fund some of the most cutting-edge medical companies out there. He didn't just succeed in spite of his average grades. He actually argues that he succeeded because of them. So this became Bielke's whole theory, and he believed in it so much, he started a $1 million scholarship just for average students. His argument? The smart kids had it too easy. But because school was harder for the average kids, they had to get involved in more clubs, meet more people, and just flat out work harder. And all that hustle exposed them to way more opportunities than the gifted kids who could just coast on by.
And hey, this isn't just a one-off story. Meet William Billy Gilmore. His college GPA was wait for it, 2.01. But man, he had tenacity. This is a guy who had the courage to show up at his professor's house to argue for a better grade. And that exact same courage made him a world-class salesman. Why? Because sales, just like being an entrepreneur, is all about bouncing back from rejection again and again.
This all ties into a really critical idea we're covering in Section 3. Success isn't a solo sport. Because as all the research shows, building real wealth is about building your team. I absolutely love this story. The legendary football coach Bear Bryant, his very first lesson to his freshman players had nothing to do with football. He got them all together and asked if they'd called home to thank their parents. His point was so powerful. You didn't get here just because you're talented. Someone, somewhere, sacrificed for you and supported you. And that lesson is completely universal. The author of the book notes that he never met a single wealthy person who took all the credit for their own success. Becoming wealthy is like scoring a touchdown. You can be the best running back in the world, but you are going absolutely nowhere if you don't have a team blocking for you and opening up opportunities. So, who's on that team? Well, the research shows a really consistent pattern. Millionaires give a huge amount of credit to their supportive spouse, to their key employees, to dedicated mentors, like that high school counselor who pushed Warren Bielke to even consider college, and to a small circle of trusted professional advisors.
Okay, we've covered the mindset, we've covered the relationships. Now, in our final section, let's get into the weeds and look at the real millionaire habits, the day-to-day things they do that make all the difference.
So I want you to think about this. When you're faced with that paralyzing fear of failure, what do you think is the go-to strategy for the wealthy? Is it some complex financial hedge fund trick, a secret meditation technique? Well, the answer, based on a survey of over 700 millionaires, is almost shockingly simple. Their top strategies aren't fancy at all. They're all about action. A whopping 94% said hard work and believing in myself. And right behind that, 93% said preparation. See, they don't think their way out of fear, they work their way out.
And beyond that incredible work ethic, they master a skill that I think gets misunderstood all the time. It's not about being cheap, it's about something we can call smart frugality.
And what this really comes down to isn't just about pinching pennies. It's about saving their most valuable, completely non-renewable asset, their time. Every single financial decision gets run through that filter.
Here's a perfect example. Why don't most millionaires play the lottery? It's not about the dollar they might lose. The research calculated that buying just one ticket a week adds up to almost 9 hours a year. Now, for someone earning $300 an hour, that's an opportunity cost of $2,600. They'd much rather spend that time working, learning, or being with their family.
And you see this philosophy everywhere. Why do so many millionaires prefer to get their good quality shoes resold or their old furniture reupholstered? It's simple. Hunting for new stuff is a huge, frustrating time suck. Calling up their trusted repair person is efficient. There are no malls, no hassles, and zero wasted hours. That is smart frugality in action.
So, let's wrap all this up. If you take just one thing away from our time together today, let it be this. Building wealth, true success, it is not some special prize that's reserved only for the intellectually gifted. Instead, it's built on 3 pillars that are accessible to absolutely anyone. First, cultivating the resilience to get punched in the gut and get back up. Second, building a strong, supportive team around you. And third, mastering productive habits that value your time just as much as your money.
And I'll leave you with one final thought to chew on. How many of us, conditioned by this myth of the A student, have walked right past a C+ opportunity simply because it didn't look prestigious enough on the surface? What amazing things might you discover if you started looking for success in all the places that everyone else overlooks?